the planet we've been obsessed with for 5,000 years, and why Elon Musk wants it next. Mars before telescopes, the god we feared and worshipped, before we ever called it a planet. Before telescopes, rockets, or red dust under robotic wheels, Mars was a god. And not just any god, the god of war, of blood, of rage, of destiny. You see, we didn't need science to know Mars mattered. Thousands of years ago, ancient people looked up and saw it. A strange red star that moved differently from all the others. While the rest of the night sky stayed still, Mars wandered. It reversed. It paused. And when it appeared, bad things followed. Plagues, famines, battles. The Babylonians called it Nergal, god of fire and destruction. To them, Mars wasn't a celestial object. It was a sign. And when it burned red in the night, the priests didn't smile. They shuddered. In Egypt, Mars was tied to the god Horus, the Avenger. But even in that mighty pantheon, Mars stood apart. It didn't follow rules. It didn't behave. It was a rebel, the wild card in the heavens. Then came the Greeks. They gave Mars a name that still echoes in war zones today. Ares, the embodiment of chaos and violence. But it was the Romans who sealed the planet's legacy forever, naming it after their most feared and respected god, Mars. They built temples for him, sacrificed animals in his name, and when armies marched into foreign lands, they did it with the cry, "For Mars," on their lips. That's where our obsession began, not with curiosity but with fear, because Mars didn't shine like other stars, it glowed like blood, and humans, being the superstitious species we are, turned that into mythology, into meaning. But here's the twist. They weren't entirely wrong. Even before we had the science, we could sense that Mars wasn't just another dot in the sky. It was special. Not the biggest, not the brightest, but different. Office watching. Every civilization had a name for it. Every culture had a story. The Chinese saw it as the fire star. In Hindu astrology, it was Mangala, born from the sweat of Shiva's third eye, destined to bring destruction. The Mayans tracked Mars' movements with terrifying precision, carving its orbit into stone calendars. Across time and geography, the pattern is the same. Mars was always the omen, the red sign in the sky that made kings nervous and prophets speak in riddles. And yet, humans couldn't stop looking at it. That's the paradox. We feared Mars, but we couldn't look away. Like moths to flame, we were drawn to its danger. By the time the Renaissance rolled around and telescopes gave us a real view of the sky, Mars was no longer just a myth. It was a mystery, and that made it even more powerful. But the obsession didn't fade. It evolved. In 1609, Galileo Galilei was the first man to point a telescope at Mars and see it as more than a light. He saw it as a world, a disk, not a dot, a place, and that changed everything. Suddenly, Mars wasn't just the god of war, it was another Earth. And with that idea came a tidal wave of questions. Could it have water? Could it have cities? Could it have people? By the 1800s, this idea exploded. One astronomer, Giovanni Schiaparelli, drew what he called canali on Mars, Italian for channels, but English speakers mistranslated it as canals. Artificial, built. The world ran with it. Newspapers began talking about Martians. Authors imagined Mars as a dying world trying to reach us. Telescopes were pointed, sketches were made. The red planet became a canvas for our wildest hopes and fears. And what did we imagine? That they were watching us. That somewhere on that blood-colored rock someone had built machines, cities, weapons. And they were staring back. Why Mars? Why not Jupiter or Saturn? Because Mars is close. It's visible, tangible, only 55 million kilometers away at its nearest. And it looks like something we could touch. It's dry, cracked, wounded, and in that, we see ourselves. Even before we landed anything on it, we projected our own dreams, anxieties, and guilt onto Mars. It became a stage for every fear we had about the future: war, extinction, loneliness. So much so that in 1938, when a radio actor named Orson Welles read a fictional story called The War of the Worlds, people believed it was real. They thought Martians were invading Earth, and they panicked. Phones rang off the hook, highways clogged, people loaded guns and waited on rooftops. That's the power Mars held, not just as a planet, but as a mirror. It didn't just reflect light. It reflected us, our violence, our wonder, our longing to not be alone. From ancient gods to imagined invaders, Mars has always been the planet that holds up a dark glass to humanity. And the scariest thing we see is not aliens, it's ourselves, if we're left unchecked. And now, in the 21st century, Mars is back in the spotlight. Not because of omens, not because of gods, but because one man and an entire species is asking the most dangerous question of all. What if we could go there? Not in stories, not in dreams, but for real. Rockets, ruins, and the curse of the red planet. You'd think we would have been ready. By the mid-20th century, we had harnessed fire, split the atom, reached the upper atmosphere. America and the Soviet Union were throwing satellites into orbit like baseballs. The moon was in our sights. Space was the new ocean, and everyone wanted to be the first to conquer it. But Mars? Mars wasn't just hard. It was impossible. At first, the ambition was simple. Send a probe. Just a little metal bird to fly by and take a photo. That was the dream. But even that went wrong. The Soviet Union tried first. In 1960, they launched Marsnik 1 and Marsnik 2. Both failed to even leave Earth's orbit. The rockets sputtered, fell back, burned in the sky like shooting stars that never had a wish. Sputnik 22 exploded Mars. Lost communication halfway there. Zoned 2. Dead silence. The Americans weren't faring much better. 1964. NASA launched Mariner 3. It failed. Then Mariner 4. Finally, success. It made it. And what did it show? A graveyard. Barren. Dry. A dusty, broken world with craters and canyons. No canals, no cities, no signs of life. It crushed the dream, and yet it also lit a new fire. Because Mars wasn't just the god of war anymore, it had become a puzzle, and humans, by nature, are addicted to puzzles. In the decades that followed, dozens of missions were planned. Most failed, some spectacularly. Mars Observer, 1993, lost minutes before orbit. Beagle 2, 2003, vanished without a trace. Russia's Phobos Grunt, 2011, never made it out of Earth's grip. In total, more than half of all Mars missions have failed. Scientists call it bad engineering. Some astronauts call it Murphy's Law. But the rest of us? We started calling it the Mars Curse. Because how could one planet, just one, be this hard to touch? Even the successes felt cursed. NASA's Viking 1 and Viking 2 landers made it in the 1970s, took photos, analyzed soil, proved that Mars once had water, but no life, no microbes, just silence. It was like Mars didn't want to be touched. But of course, we kept trying. Because something about Mars makes humans stubborn. We'd already been to the moon, planted a flag, bounced around in slow motion and came home. But no one's dreaming of building cities on the moon. Mars? Mars feels like the next Earth. That's why we send robots. Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, Perseverance, each one more advanced than the last. Each one crawling over the red surface like explorers in a forgotten desert. Spirit got stuck. Opportunity died in a dust storm. Curiosity found proof of ancient rivers. And Perseverance? It's drilling samples right now. Pieces of Mars that might one day return to Earth. It's easy to forget just how obsessed we are. We've sent more machines to Mars than any other planet. We have entire rooms of scientists who do nothing but watch sand blow across another world. And all for what? Because Mars is not just a goal. It's an idea. The idea that maybe, just maybe, if we screw things up badly enough here, we'll have somewhere to go. That's the truth people don't like to admit. Our obsession with Mars has always been part wonder and part escape plan. Because deep down, we know this planet we're on, it's fragile, it's burning, flooding, breaking. And Mars, cold, dead, empty Mars, might be our backup drive. But the irony, Mars is not kind. Its atmosphere is thin. Its surface pressure is less than 1% of Earth's. Temperatures can drop to minus 200 degrees. There's no liquid water, no breathable air. Every second there is a battle for survival. And yet, we keep going. We keep launching metal dreams toward a red ghost that has rejected us time and time again. Because Mars, like all great myths, is more than just a place. It's a mirror, a challenge, a story we keep rewriting. And in the 21st century, one man took that story and turned it into a mission, not just to visit Mars, not just to study it, but to live there. His name? You already know. Elon Musk. It started as a childhood dream, not a corporate memo, not a government strategy, a dream. One kid, growing up in apartheid-era South Africa, hiding from bullies, nose deep in sci-fi novels, reading about space colonies and rocket ships and people walking on red dirt. That kid was Elon Musk. Long before he was building electric cars or dominating headlines, Musk had a singular obsession: Mars. Not just visiting it, but living there. And in 2002, he decided the world wasn't moving fast enough. So he founded SpaceX. The goal? Not to sell satellites, not to win government contracts, to make life multiplanetary. It sounded insane. At the time, NASA was grounded. Budgets were tight. Mars was still killing probes in midair. And here comes this internet millionaire, barely 30, talking about colonizing another planet. But Musk wasn't bluffing. He started with Falcon 1, a rocket that failed multiple times, cost him nearly everything, and finally succeeded just before SpaceX ran out of money. Then came Falcon 9, then Dragon, the capsule, then Starship, a rocket so massive it could one day carry 100 people to Mars. And the message stayed the same. If we don't make life multiplanetary, we risk extinction. And Mars is our best shot. For Musk, Mars isn't just a curiosity, it's insurance. He believes Earth is vulnerable to war, to pandemics, to climate collapse, and that the only way to guarantee the survival of human consciousness is to plant it on another world. That world, Mars. But here's where it gets complicated, because Musk isn't just building rockets. He's building a narrative, one that has captured the imagination of millions and drawn criticism from just as many. His vision is bold: fleets of reusable rockets ferrying settlers to the red planet, domed habitats, greenhouses powered by solar, a society built from scratch. But it raises questions. Who gets to go? Who owns the land? What laws will apply? And most importantly, what kind of people will we become when we leave Earth behind? Musk shrugs at these questions. He says we'll figure it out, that humanity has always been messy, but bold. And there's truth to that. The same spirit that crossed oceans and climbed mountains is now looking at the stars. The same ambition that built cathedrals and conquered continents is now pointed at a cold red rock. But ambition, history reminds us, comes with consequences. Some scientists worry that Musk's timeline is reckless, that Mars isn't just hard, it's lethal. No magnetic field, high radiation, dust that could clog lungs and poison systems. And we still haven't figured out how to grow food reliably in zero gravity, let alone on another planet. Others warn about the ethics of colonization. that calling it a new frontier echoes dangerous patterns of conquest, of ignoring native life if it exists, of turning exploration into exploitation. But none of that has slowed Musk down, because what drives him isn't politics, it's urgency. He's said it plainly. We have a window of opportunity. It may not last long. We have to act now. And people are listening. In 2020, SpaceX became the first private company to send astronauts into orbit. In 2021, it started testing Starship, the rocket meant for Mars. Explosions followed. Tests failed. But every time they rebuilt, retried, got closer. The plan is simple, in theory. First, land cargo on Mars. Rovers, life support, equipment. Next, send humans, a small crew. Test the habitat. Then scale up, dozens. Then hundreds. Eventually, a city, a self-sustaining Martian civilization. Musk says this could happen in our lifetime, and not centuries from now, not for our great-grandchildren. Now, and for millions, that's enough. They wear Mars hoodies, watch every launch, study diagrams of pressurized suits and dust-resistant habitats. They believe Mars is not just a dream, it's a calling. But let's pause. Let's ask the harder question. Why are we in such a hurry to leave? Is it hope, or is it guilt? Because when we talk about going to Mars, we rarely talk about what we're leaving behind. Wars, pollution, inequality. Are we exporting our best selves, or just running from our worst? Elon Musk says Mars will be hard, that many will die, that it will be dangerous, and still, he's pushing forward. Because to him, and to those who believe, staying here is more dangerous. Not because Earth is doomed, but because stagnation is. Because the moment we stop reaching, we start decaying. And maybe that's what Mars is, and not a destination, but a test. To see if we're ready to evolve, to see if we can build something better, to see if we can survive a place that wants nothing to do with us, and make it home. Let's take a breath. Forget the rockets for a second. Forget Elon Musk. Forget billionaires and boosters and payloads and pressurized suits. Let's go deeper, not into space, but into ourselves. Because Mars has never really been about space. It's been about us. Why have we obsessed over this one planet for 5,000 years? Why did the Babylonians mark its movements in clay? Why did Galileo aim his lens at it? Why did NASA pour billions into a world that has nothing to offer but dust and cold? The answer? Because Mars is the perfect reflection of who we are and who we fear we're becoming. Let's go back. In ancient times, Mars was the angry god, a red eye in the sky that foretold war and destruction. It moved unlike the other stars, erratic, unpredictable. People feared it, but they also respected it. It became a divine warning. Something is coming, something violent. And that idea never left. In modern times, as we evolved, Mars evolved with us. We didn't just see a god, we started to see a place. And once Mars became a place, it became something else, a possibility. By the 19th century, telescopes revealed markings on the surface, dark lines, light patches, theories emerged. Maybe there were canals, maybe they were cities. Maybe someone or something was watching us. The fascination turned to obsession. Authors wrote of Martian civilizations, scientists debated atmospheric pressure and soil composition, but underneath all of it was projection. We were imagining a better version of ourselves, or worse. Sometimes Mars was a utopia. Sometimes it was a warning. Sometimes it was a second chance. Sometimes it was a grave. And always, it was us. Because Mars is the blank page we keep rewriting. Every generation finds in it what they most fear or most desire. In the Cold War, Mars was the next front, a space race battleground. In the 21st century, it's the escape pod. Why? Because we're not just obsessed with Mars, we're obsessed with what Mars lets us forget. It lets us forget the mess we've made here, the wars, the division, the climate, the injustice. Mars is untouched, pure in its desolation. We look at it and think, maybe if we start over there, we'll get it right this time. But will we? Mars has no air, no water, no comfort. If we go there, it will not be to relax. It will be to fight, every day, for survival. Just like we always have. We're not going to Mars to escape struggle. We're bringing struggle with us. Because the real challenge isn't reaching Mars. It's deserving it. It's asking the hard questions before we pack the rockets. What values are we sending with us? Will we build a society based on justice, or just recreate the same hierarchies, the same systems of exclusion? Will Mars be for the many, or for the few who can afford the ticket? Will it be a scientific outpost, a corporate colony, a spiritual refuge, a military base, or something new entirely? These are questions we rarely ask because the fantasy of Mars is too strong. It's clean, simple, red and quiet, a place where nobody knows your past and the future is yours to invent. But that fantasy is dangerous. Because if we don't answer those questions before we go, Mars won't save us. It will just reflect us, in brutal silence. The truth is, we're not going to Mars for Mars. We're going because of what we think we'll find. Redemption. We want to redeem our mistakes, our wars, our failure to protect this Earth. We want to prove that we're more than the worst parts of our history, that we can create instead of destroy, build instead of burn, unite instead of divide, and Mars, empty, waiting, patient, is our test. Can we do it? Can we look at a dead planet and find life? Can we look at ourselves, the species that turned Earth into a place of both wonder and suffering, and say, this time, we'll do better? That's what's really at stake. Not science, not politics, not even survival, hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, we've learned enough. That the same species that once feared Mars, then worshipped it, then studied it, then chased it, might now be ready to honor it, to treat it not as a trophy or an escape hatch, but as a blank chapter. And maybe, if we write that chapter well, we'll come home better. Not just from Mars, but from ourselves. It's easy to think of Mars as the final goal, the last great voyage, the ultimate test of human technology and ambition. But maybe, just maybe, we've had it backwards all along. Maybe Mars was never the destination. Maybe it was the mirror, held up to force us to ask, who are we really? Because the truth is, everything we see on that red frozen world, the silence, the storms, the emptiness, doesn't scare us because it's alien. It scares us because we see ourselves. We see the wars we've fought, the civilizations we've buried, the loneliness we've created, the wastelands we've left behind. Mars has always been the place we projected our future onto, and now that future is real. But here's the question Elon Musk and SpaceX and the dreamers and the doomsday preppers aren't asking loudly enough. What happens if we get to Mars and we haven't fixed who we are? What happens if we bring the same broken systems, the same greed, the same tribalism, and plant it in red soil? Will we build domes or borders? Will we share oxygen or charge for it? Will we become a civilization of pioneers, or repeat history with shinier helmets? We stand at a turning point, not just technologically, not just politically, but spiritually. Mars isn't just about rockets and robots. It's about responsibility. We now have the power to become a multi-planet species. That's not a fantasy anymore. The engines are real. The funding is real. The countdown is ticking. But before we build on Mars, we need to rebuild ourselves. Because if we don't, we'll get there and turn it into another Earth. Not the Earth we could be. The Earth we ran from. So what's the real final frontier? It's not space, it's empathy. It's learning to solve problems here before exporting them into the stars. It's learning to live with each other before we try living on a planet that will try to kill us every minute. It's realizing that our survival has never depended on reaching the next world. It has always depended on understanding our place in this one. And that's where Mars becomes more than a planet. It becomes a challenge, not to escape, but to evolve. Because maybe Mars isn't waiting to be colonized. Maybe Mars is waiting for us to become the kind of people who deserve another world. And maybe, if we light that fire inside ourselves first, we won't just survive Mars. We'll write a better chapter for every place we touch after. So here's Uncle Luke's final message. Don't chase Mars to escape Earth. Don't build rockets to outrun your reflection. Become someone who belongs wherever you land, because you carry peace with you. Now ask yourself, are you running from something or building something? Because that will decide what kind of flag we plant. Not just on Mars, but in the future. Subscribe to Uncle Luke Tells for stories that look beyond the stars and dive deeper into the truth about who we are. Like, comment, share, because this journey isn't over, and we haven't even left the launch pad yet.